There are passive and active ways of media, and more specifically news consumption, where passive means you just watch TV or you read your news feed or something like that. An active way of news consumption is when you search for the news on your own. Like, do your own web search, all right? Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert de Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. Today we're going to be talking about two ways of watching or reading or listening to the news, alright? I would claim that there are passive and active forms of news consumption. And most of this video I'm going to be actually talking about the passive one, so let's begin with this one exactly. So what it means to consume media, and more specifically the news, passively. It means to just kind of scroll your feed or just watch your TV or listen to your radio if you're in 1950s or something like that. Or read the newspapers, alright? And this is by far the main mode of media/news consumption today, I would argue. I don't have any charts, of course, but I'm pretty sure that I'm correct here. And you can always correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong in the first place, alright? So we've already talked about this in some older video of mine, which luckily for you I don't remember, so I'm not going to reference it. So to briefly reiterate, we keep hearing about things which are, roughly speaking, unimportant, like in average day life of an average human being. For example, like the best examples would be terrorism and plane crashes, alright? So terrorism or plane crashes are objectively not an issue for you. That would be my big statement. But you think they are because you keep hearing about them from the news, right? That's how it works. And it's a bit of a paradox because the news are usually about something unusual, no pun intended, alright? Something new. Also no pun intended. So in a way, it's something extraordinary, you know, something that hasn't happened before and therefore deserves attention. Therefore, they put it in the news. But the cognitive processes of human beings work in such a way that the consumer then, because they keep seeing all of this stuff, they then perceive these anomalous happenings as the norm, even though they are still anomalous, right? So that's not good, is it? All right? You know, in Acoustics, I actually wanted to call this video Acoustics of Media initially, but then I followed up with some more catchy titles. So in Acoustics, there is this phenomenon where you basically only hear the loudest sound, okay? So imagine you're in a shower, and with the hissing noise of the water, you know, against your ears, you may not hear your phone ringing in the neighboring room, right? Even though with the shower turned off, you would be perfectly capable of hearing it. So this is the effect I'm talking about. And the same happens in media. That's why I wanted to call it Acoustics of Media. So just like you only hear the loudest sound, you can't hear any others because of it, you can only, so to speak, hear the loudest piece of news, and it just outscreams all the other news, if you know what I mean. So it's just everyone keeps reposting it, and all of your feed keeps just turned into basically the same message, maybe slightly from different angles. All right, and it's obviously not good as well. All right. Just like with the news about terrorism and plane crashes. Like most of the time, it doesn't even concern you, whatever news you're reading. And it's a big problem. Like you are so removed from everything because of this, right? This almost Marxist alienation is happening or something to that effect. So, and obviously also many people love to underline this, emphasize this. This opens the gates for a lot of possibilities of corruption and control, from the side of the media, because obviously you only hear the agenda, or at least that's the idea, okay? So it's like, and okay, I'm not even going to go into all the details of how power works, because I also don't quite know it, to be honest, right? The real structure of power, I would claim, is mostly unknown to us, okay? To a large degree, at least. Like, all these, you know, old families with bunches of money just controlling all the media and all the governments, and, even more importantly, having connections to each other, okay? all of this, even though I can actually comment a little bit on this. So we all heard about the Rothschilds, some people think they are some sort of secret villains controlling the world government. Well, no, they're just puppets for the British government, really. I mean, when the British government wants to spend money on something, but it doesn't want to be, let's say, associated with this, okay? They hire some people, some special people that just spend the money for it. And such special people are the Rothschilds in particular. This is just one example. George Soros would be another good example. And again, as I've said in one of my older videos, like once you hear a Hungarian last name, that's basically a British agent. It's like 99% guarantee. George Soros is not an exception. All right. So he spends British money, essentially. So yeah, let's return to our topic. Okay, let's just finish this small sub-rant, this small paragraph that, of course, this opens possibilities for corruption and control. Okay. This effect that I've just described, this media effect. But I'm not going to be very concerned by it because, well, I have some larger issues at hand. Remember, we have this passive-active discussion. We're still in the passive stage, okay? We need to proceed further. So some news, and this is actually also a known effect, accidentally get elevated. And by that, I mean the news. I mean the actually something unusual, actually something deserving attention. But in 99.9% of cases, they aren't, okay? So the actual news remain sort of beyond the scope of what's visible to you. And what's visible to you is what you're being shown, okay? Or what you've been shown. I don't know. Been shown, you're being shown, you're shown being. Sorry. I guess after that, never mind. I mean, I wanted to make a joke how he dies in every movie, but I cannot come up with any decent one. Anyway. So, and it, like this effect, when accidentally something slips through the cracks and also gets viralized, so to speak, is the same effect as we see in fashion, for example, right? Like, if you think how fashion develops, like every season, you know, like different designers come up with like a million different things, but only a handful of them become trendy, right? And it's the same sort of effect of this quasi-spontaneous self-organization of society or something like that, you know. And also, again, this may happen even without the agenda, you know. Maybe actually, like, if we don't assume some sort of will controlling this, like all these big families and stuff, which are actually there and they're actually controlling the agenda. Let's not make a joke about it. Let's not doubt about it for a second. But still, even without it, such an effect would be present, just like it is in fashion, all right? So, even without the evil agenda, something like a concern with Chinese flu may have a reason, something like a concern with the war in Ukraine may have a reason. By the way, watch my video about videos, plural, about both of these things, or about Kanye West being a Nazi or something, you know, or some other things that people are concerned with right now, which I'm not aware of. So, so we're kind of moving almost to the active stage. We're almost done with the passive stage. So obviously what I've described to you is not very good, all right, in any respect. But it's just a reality we have to work with. Again, I would reiterate that even without some sort of agenda, some sort of like power structures desiring to do something, such effects would be observed, or at least something similar to that would be observed. And some people have thought about this and developed some, well, not necessarily to this end, but some solutions exist that may help with this problem, all right? So I'll only briefly talk about two, and these are only, again, exactly that, like palliative solutions, you know, like half solutions. So one solution is the so-called Web 2.0. Maybe you've heard about it, maybe you didn't, but the only point that would really interest us with regards to Web 2.0 is the recommendation system, okay? So the recommendation system, like you have in your social media, is a partial solution to the problem of this, you know, agenda being pushed onto everyone, right? But it obviously has side effects of your agenda being pushed onto you, aka creating informational bubbles, right? Or echo chambers, as they are more commonly known, probably in the English sphere. So yeah, that's kind of a problem. So how does it work? Essentially is you actively choose the pieces of media you kind of trust, and then they can translate their agenda onto you, however they wish, right? So this is almost active, but still passive, because you just keep scrolling and you just keep watching what your chosen news providers, what kind of agenda they want to move onto you, essentially. Then the second possible solution, at least that I'm aware of, is some, let's say, semi-independent, wink wink, news aggregators, for example, Ground News that you've heard about, right? And you thought there's going to be an advertisement. There won't. In fact, I will claim that Ground News is shit, actually. Mark my words. You may clip it, actually, and send to their executives or whatever. Never mind. So, in this situation, they just kind of pretend to be neutral, but they just aggregate the agendas of other people, essentially, on their website, right? That's what they're doing. And you're still a passive consumer of other people's agendas. It's just now you see, okay, there is this agenda and this agenda. Which agenda do I choose from, right? That's the choice you've been given. And somehow, again, this has been promoted as some sort of a be-all, end-all solution of this media consumption problem. It isn't, all right? Ground News is shit, I reiterate. And since I've made this point already a couple of times, let me go into a sub-rant about advertisements, because I only say these words because I saw their advertisements so many times on some of the channels I previously respected, and nothing makes me lose respect for a channel more and faster than a stupid advertisement, alright? So, yeah, again, let me give you an anecdote. Just yesterday, I think, I've been watching a new video by Jesse Michels, or whatever you pronounce it. It's the guy who makes interviews with various very interesting people, okay? He's mostly concerned with, like alternative science, like UFOs, secret politics, things like that, like Illuminati or whatever. These, typical Joe Rogan type of topics. And the video was about this older guy giving him, Jesse Michels interviewing this older guy who told him about Kennedy assassination by CIA. So some really profound info with actual evidence. And then at minute 20 or something, the author, the Michels guy, advertises jeans. And I'm like, I was shocked in a bad way, really. Really? Are you serious? And I'm not even sure I have to explain to you my shock. Why was I shocked? Some really, really deep, profound info is being told here. And now I'm just hey, let's take a minute to advertise jeans. What the hell? There was this saying in modern Russian internet, if I have to explain, I don't have to explain. If I have to explain it to you, then it means you're so retarded that even my explanation won't help you, if you don't see a problem in what I just told you. So yeah, there is no way of ruining your credibility faster than with advertisement, okay? I guess this depends on people's goals. If your goal is to get views today or maybe within a week and then get some money this month from whoever pays for your advertisement, good. But if your goal is to be watched in 100 years from now, for example, you probably won't do it. And again, these actions, they specifically show you people's agendas, right? These authors' agendas. Again, I'm kind of yelling at cloud, but imagine if you're reading Plato, okay, a guy who's been read for at least 1,000 years. If you're into conventional history, you may say 2,000 plus years. And in a dialogue, Socrates tells one of the guys, by the way, let's stop for a moment talking about beauty and virtue. There's a friend of mine, Chrysippos. He runs this, sculpture shop over the road, and he makes really good sculptures. Look at this one. I get it from him. Look at this beautiful marble. And the guy then describes, oh yes, such a beautiful marble. It shines so good, because you can't show it through the text how beautiful the sculpture is. And everyone says, yeah, good. Please go to Chrysippos' shop and order a sculpture. Yeah, very good. Now, let's talk about virtue again. This is how it sounds. It's just as ridiculous as in this example, to my eyes at least, alright? I just feel so much disrespect to myself as the viewer from whoever advertises in this sort of fashion, you know, that I just unsubscribe. Like, you know, like my tolerance for bullshit is very low these days. All right. End of rant. Oh, but not end of rant. Self-advertisement is good though, okay? Like every philosopher, and even more so philosopher, would be proud to advertise their own, you know, wit, their own intelligence, their own wisdom. So it's kind of fine. You may say that Plato's dialogues are just an advertisement of his philosophical school. And to a degree it is the case, right? And it's a pretty powerful school. I mean, there's many Platonists over the centuries. Anyway, let's return to the topic. The advertisement against advertisements is over, finally. So, we've already seen what passive news consumption is about. We've already seen some palliative solutions which are kind of almost getting to an active stage. And what is the ultimate solution to this problem of passive news consumption, I would claim, is the active news consumption. And active means you simply do active search by yourself of the news that you might be interested in. Like, hey, what happened yesterday in this kind of place? Like, how many stuff happens there yearly or whatever? You know, this kind of info. You just search it on your own. Like checking up on your friends, you know, you just message your friend. You say, hey, how you doing? Long time no see. What's about? You know, what's happening? So you're basically, you're almost like treating stories that interest you, some running threads of your life, almost like your friends, you know, you're tracing them, like tracing these running stories that are important to you in whatever you're doing, whatever your goals are, which are obviously very individual. So your agenda will then be able to sort of shape itself. But it can only shape itself if you actively participate in this process. Otherwise, it will be shaped by these terrorism and plane crashes in Kanye West and Ukraine, you know. That's why, like, you sometimes get a glimpse of that, and just think about this as an example. Why is it always fun to listen to experts? Like, you know, every now and then you may discover an expert in XYZ, and you kind of like watch, I don't know, like 10 or 20 videos of them right away. Why is that? Well, it's because any expert, like by virtue of being an expert, they professionally have to track their field actively. They perform active search. They're not listening about Kanye West, you know. They're actively looking for info in their field. So that's why you learn so much by listening to them, even if it's for, you know, a very brief amount of time. So, by the same token, you might become an expert in whatever interests you, because you would, again, just like an expert would do, go and search the info actively, right? And again, returning to the friends topic, it's the same with friends. Like, every one of you probably knows, let's say, a guy that's really good in XYZ, right? And if you have problems with XYZ, one of the things you may do is just ask them, right? In case you need some info or some help, right? So just by the same token, you might become the guy who's good at alpha, beta, gamma or something, you know, or whatever other letters from other alphabets. So this is the way, this active, basically news creation almost, but not really creation, more like consumption. The whole point is to reclaim the initiative, you know, become the master of your life. I mean, I know it sounds pompous and actually ridiculous, but, I mean, what are you going to do? This is actually the case, you know, because, again, let's contrast it to the passive consumption. Like, invasion of other people's narratives into your mind, into your life, is just as destructive, I would claim, as invasion of actual other people into your actual life, you know, physically. Like, I would even claim that your mind is more vulnerable than your body, actually, okay, and even more vulnerable than your possessions. I've had a video about this. It was a very old video. It was called Glass Cannon. I'm gonna link it, where I talk about how mind is a very new invention, historically speaking, evolutionarily speaking, and therefore it is very vulnerable. It's very, how do you say it? Weak, in terms of resistance to outside influences, alright? So therefore, your mind should be kept even cleaner than your body, okay? Your body had much more time to evolve, and your mind really didn't. They call it a palace for a reason, you know. It should be kept clean. So privacy actually is needed for any meaningfulness activity. And again, I reference my own video, Why Humanity is Dying Out, where I talk about the lack of meaning in modern life. Well, this news situation that we have is certainly one of the biggest contributors to the lack of meaning in our life. It's because, again, you are so alienated from these terrorists and Chinese flu, you know, like it's not about you. Like you feel like you're no one because it's not about you, but everyone talks about it. And it's also like constantly like this shower in your ear, shower of piss, arguably, you know. So it's not good, you know. So in order to produce any sort of meaning, you need privacy. Like, again, returning to the friends example, like imagine you're in a big crowd, or especially near a large street with like really heavy traffic. You can't even talk to your friend if you're in this situation, right? So you can't establish any meaningful connection. Why is that? Well, because you will be constantly interrupted by this actual acoustic noise, right? Or even like the physical flow of people. So you need some sort of privacy. You need some sort of a place where you can safely shape the narrative. It almost sounds physical, but it almost is physical, actually, you know? So, yeah. So actually, real life talk is in this respect much better than virtual talk. Because in real life talk, you kind of have to commit, you know? If you meet your friend, you kind of have to be there with them for, I don't know, at least an hour, or otherwise it would be kind of pointless, you know? It would take more time to get there and get back than you spent together, right? And when you commit like that, you suddenly discover that it's actually good, you know? That you're actually not distracted by various crap like Kanye West or ground news, you know? Kanye West really should pay me for so many times mentioning him. Anyway, even if you chat with a friend virtually in some messenger or whatever, like it's different because there are always like 50 neighboring chats, which you would probably glance upon every now and then, right? There are probably, again, some news in your feed demanding your immediate attention, like some cat fell from the stool or whatever. Like you can't commit in such a environment, right? But I'm yelling at cloud again, so I'm kind of wrapping this up. So conclusions, right? It's actually very simple, right? And hopefully, I'm hoping I've made my point across. And my point was that there are passive and active ways of media, and more specifically news consumption, where passive means you just watch TV or you read your news feed or something like that. An active way of news consumption is when you search for the news on your own. Like do your own web search, all right? For whatever news thread that interests you, you know? It can't be anything. It can be like new technologies in cabbage cultivation or whatever's the word in English. I don't know. So yeah. And obviously, as a PS, both passive and active modes of consumption of media and specifically news have, it's not a new invention, like both of them have been present throughout history. Again, passively you just read newspapers or you just hear the crowd on the main square of your city or your village or whatever. And actively is you go to the guy who knows some stuff and you ask the guy who knows some stuff about some stuff, all right, that interests you. So yeah, obviously neither passive nor active ways are something new. But in this new technological reality that we live in, we need to adapt. And hopefully this video will at least make you think about what you do in this respect. If it didn't, I'm also happy. It's fine, all right? But ground news is still shit, all right? Thank you for watching. The eons are closing. If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.